He was directed to a secluded area behind a metal fence, where he found Kamla locked up with a male Labrador. Her father quickly called the police, and a break-in was carried out. When they found Kamla, she was barely conscious, having been without food for over 24 hours. She had been bitten by the dog and, shockingly, claimed that the animal had assaulted her sexually. Hey there! Welcome back to the channel. Today, we've got another shocking real-life story to dive into. This time, it comes from Hai Phong, a city in Vietnam. It's a story about a family torn apart because of greed and a hidden treasure, leading to disaster. The wife ends up facing the consequences of her husband's actions, and things take a dark turn. What exactly happened? Let's break it down and explore the full story together. Stay tuned. Before we dive into the story, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this with your friends. Now, let's get into it. So here's how the story goes. Mr. Phama and Mrs. Sukanya are from Hai Phong, a city in Vietnam, where parents are known for being really strict when it comes to raising their kids. Mr. Phama is a retired teacher, and Mrs. Sukanya used to sell clothes. They have 7 children, but most of them have moved away. Only the 2 youngest still live with them. The youngest, 23-year-old Kamla, just graduated from college and was hoping to pursue a master's degree. But when she brought this up, her parents shut it down. Even though her father was a teacher, they didn't see the point of her further education if she was just going to end up in the kitchen anyway. But here's where things get interesting. Mr. Phama was introduced to a businessman named Doong, who was 49 years old. Doong wasn't just a businessman. He ran a fisheries and steel business, and he was also a political figure, sitting on the advisory board of a political party and working in the government office for small and medium enterprise development. Mr. Phama and Mrs. Sukanya saw an opportunity for their daughter and decided to offer Kamla to Doong. They were convinced that if she married him, her future would be bright and filled with luxury. Even though Doong was almost 50, they thought he was still in great shape. He looked younger, strong, and seemed to have plenty of energy. His physique was still in top form, and they didn't see any issues with him being able to have children. Kamla was open to meeting him, so they arranged a dinner. Doong, smitten by her, said he would propose right away if she was interested. He even told her parents that if Kamla wasn't into him, that was okay, too. He knew he was getting older. Of course, Mr. Phama and Mrs. Sukanya were all for it. They were surprised that someone like Doong would be interested in their daughter, and they immediately told Kamla to consider the offer. They weren't even thinking about her college dreams anymore. They told her to marry Doong first, and if she still wanted to pursue her studies, she could talk to him about it later, and he'd probably cover the tuition. After all, when would Kamla get another chance to marry such a wealthy businessman, politician, and government official? Kamla initially thought her parents might be right. But there was one little thing. She already had a boyfriend of 3 years. Plus, she didn't really know Doong that well. There were rumors about him having 5 ex-wives and still being married to one of them, which made Kamla a little uneasy. But her parents were insistent. They said everything could be figured out later. Why worry about what people say, especially when it might not even be true? Besides, they pointed out, who knew how long Doong would still be interested? So, in the end, Kamla agreed. The 2 of them tied the knot in a lively wedding in June 2017, despite the 25-year age gap. The marriage quickly became the talk of the town. People saw it as a greedy move by the Phama family, with rumors swirling that they got 2 houses and a plot of land in Ton Hoa as a sort of dowry for Kamla's virginity. But it wasn't just that. They also asked for a new car, jewelry, regular monthly money transfers, and even health benefits from Doong. It didn't take long for Kamla to find out that her husband was still legally married to another woman, Chant Hone, who was 46. However, Chant Hone wasn't living with Doong. She was staying in one of the houses in Ton Hoa and taking care of their young daughter. Kamla, understandably, was confused. How could she marry a man who was still legally married? Doong explained that his relationship with Chant Hone was actually invalid. It was more of a secret marriage, because she got pregnant out of wedlock. Doong wasn't fond of her anymore, but he took care of all the child's expenses for the sake of the little girl. Meanwhile, Chant Hone still considered Doong her husband. According to Doong, he had told Kamla's parents about his situation, but they hadn't shared this with Kamla. They were afraid she might reject the marriage proposal and miss out on all the wealth. It wasn't until after the wedding that Kamla learned the full truth. Her parents told her about Chant Hone but asked her not to make a fuss about it. They reassured her that she was the official wife, legally recognized and known to the public, while Chant Hone was considered more of a side issue, even though Doong had had 8 ex-wives. Her parents were convinced this would be the last one. Doong promised Kamla that she would be the final love of his life, until death do us part. After just 1 month of marriage, Mr. Doong started getting really frustrated with the behavior of his young wife's family. They were getting more and more out of hand, acting like their daughter was some kind of angel with the beauty of Cleopatra and the body of Miss Universe. It seemed like they truly believed they were the most deserving family in the world. Every day, Mr. Farmer and his wife had something new they wanted Doong to buy, and it was always something ridiculously expensive. What surprised him most was that they weren't poor. They had a pretty large pension fund and were well educated, so he couldn't understand why they acted so greedy, always wanting more from their wealthy son-in-law. They seemed to have no class, almost like they were begging for handouts. At least Kamla wasn't like that. She kept things low-key during the first month, and didn't ask for much. But who knew what would happen as time went on? By the second month, things got worse. Kamla's brother, Baunmi, a 32-year-old who was unemployed, started demanding things too. He asked for a motorcycle, money, a new phone, and even hinted at wanting a bigger house if one became available. Baunmi was married and had 2 kids, but his wife had left him because he was lazy, played around with other women, and was abusive. He didn't even care about his little family and had gone back to live with his parents because he had no job. Now he was trying to pressure Doong for cash, claiming he needed it for business, but Doong wasn't buying it. He didn't trust Baunmi's business skills, or his genuine interest in working. All Baunmi seemed to do was drink and hang out with comfort girls. This situation made Doong angry, and Baunmi started getting more aggressive toward him. He even said he regretted giving his blessing for Kamla to marry Doong. If he had known how stingy Doong was, he would have pushed for her to marry someone wealthier. Meanwhile, Baunmi didn't seem to realize that he was asking for money almost every day, even if it was just small amounts for food or drinks. It added up, and it was exhausting for Doong. Kamla, on the other hand, started feeling guilty about how her family was treating Doong. She'd often say, "It's okay to divorce or leave if you're unhappy with how things are going." To be honest, she didn't really have strong feelings for Doong yet, but she hoped to learn to love him and become a good wife. Doong, however, kept reassuring her, saying, "Don't worry about anything. The problems with your family sucking money out of us will get worked out slowly." He even told Kamla to reject her family's demands. He didn't want her to feel like she had to keep giving in to her parents, who were turning into money-hungry leeches. Kamla agreed. This marriage should have been a sweet, loving bond, but it felt more like she was being sold off for money. She had talked to her mom about it, but Mrs. Sukanya just acted like she didn't care. She said Kamla should take advantage of the situation while she could. Kamla was still young, and her parents expected her to fulfill all their demands. When Kamla tried talking to her dad, he pretended to be sick, claiming that if she didn't follow through with their plans, he might die. The threats kept coming, and Kamla was left feeling trapped between her family and her husband. By the end of August 2017, Doong started to notice some things about his wife that didn't sit well with him. Kamla seemed to be going out during the day without telling him where she was going, even though she wasn't meeting her parents. At night, she was always on the phone, either texting or talking, and barely listened to him when he tried to talk. So, Doong decided to send someone to check it out. Turns out, Kamla had been seeing the same guy for 3 days straight. Doong wasted no time confronting her parents. He even showed Mr. Farmer a photo of Kamla with the other man. He made it clear that if his wife was still sneaking around behind his back, he would take back everything he had given to her family. Houses, land, money, everything. Naturally, Mr. Farmer and his wife panicked. They called Kamla in for a conversation to get to the bottom of it. Kamla finally admitted that she still had feelings for her old boyfriend Vongsa, who was 29. She confessed that even though she was married to Doong, her heart still belonged to him. Vongsa, she said, understood and never stood in the way of her marrying Doong. The problem was, Mr. Farmer never liked Vongsa. He thought the guy was a loser. His job wasn't stable, he barely made any money, and he showed up to their house in dirty clothes, riding a beat-up motorcycle. Kamla shared that she'd once visited Vongsa's place and saw that his bed hadn't been changed in ages. How could her father approve of him as a husband? Kamla and Vongsa had been together for over 3 years, and no matter how much she tried to follow her parents' wishes, the connection with him was too strong to ignore. But eventually, Kamla gave in to her parents' pressure. She returned home, apologized to Doong, and promised she wouldn't see Vongsa again. She told him she would be faithful and committed to their marriage. Then, on September 1, 2017, Doong's first wife, Chant Hone, showed up at their house, furious. She was upset because Doong had decided to lower the monthly allowance she was getting. While Kamla's allowance stayed the same, Chanthone's was reduced, and she wasn't happy about it. But instead of confronting her husband, she took her anger out on Kamla. Doong, on the other hand, wasn't about to change his decision about the money. The tension in the house kept building, and the stress finally got to Doong. The next day, he came home at noon and, hearing rumors from the community about Kamla's greedy family, he lost it. In a fit of frustration, he grabbed Kamla by the hair and beat her. It was just another painful chapter in their troubled marriage. That evening, when Doong got home, he wasted no time. He immediately took Kamla to file a report about the assault. Chant Hone was arrested and sentenced to 3 months in prison, but she was soon released on bail. However, she was ordered to stay away from Kamla. Then, just a few days later, on September 5, 2017, Doong's brother-in-law, Baunmi, showed up with an agreement that Doong was expected to sign. Baunmi demanded a large sum of money so he could travel to Hanoi, and he made it clear that Doong had just 3 days to pay up, or else he would be forced to divorce Kamla. Baunmi felt like it was a bad deal to give his beautiful sister to a man who was supposedly wealthy and influential, but was being stingy. Sign it now, Baunmi insisted. But Doong wasn't having any of it. He was no fool. He questioned why Baunmi was asking for money like it was a handout instead of a legitimate business investment. If you want business capital or funds for something, at least show me what kind of business you're going to run. Don't just beg like it's pocket money, Doong shot back. Doong was done with the games. He told Baunmi, "Take your sister home if you think I'm a bad deal, and return everything I've given your family. All the houses, land, and luxury gifts. Otherwise, I'll report what your parents have been accepting from me. And, for the record, I've never even touched Kamla in bed. Just ask her." This comment sent Kamla's family into a panic. Mr. Farmer and Mrs. Sukanya were furious with their son-in-law's words, and 2 days later, they found out that Kamla had gone missing. Word was she had run away with her lover, Vongsa, and left town, adding even more stress to her parents. Doong, at this point, was tired of the whole situation. Honestly, he regretted marrying Kamla. He didn't want to deal with her demanding family, and it seemed like she had no interest in him either. So, Doong decided to put the pressure on. He told Kamla's family that if she didn't return within 2 days, he would report the whole thing as fraud. He even said he would return all the gifts and materials they had given her family. Of course, Mr. Farmer managed to get in touch with Kamla and, in a panic, started crying on the phone, claiming he had a heart attack because of her actions. Finally, on September 8th, Kamla returned home to Doong, begging for his forgiveness. But it was too little, too late. Doong wasn't having it. He had reached his breaking point. He ordered his assistant to take care of Kamla at their large house. To make a point, Kamla was locked in a cage with a male Labrador that was in heat, where she was left for 2 days. It was a harsh punishment, but Doong had had enough of the lies and the chaos caused by her and her family. So Doong took off for Tonhua City for work, leaving things tense back home. On the evening of September 10, 2017, Mr. Foma, worried because he hadn't heard from his daughter in a while, decided to visit Do-ong's house. He didn't meet with Do-ong but instead found the house assistant, who was just handling the cleaning and upkeep. The assistant directed him to the back area, where Kamla was locked up in a cage with a male Labrador. Panicked, Mr. Foma immediately called the police, and they broke into the area. What they found was horrifying. Kamla was in a terrible state, weak for more than 24 hours without food, bitten by the dog, and even claiming that the animal had assaulted her in some way. The details are unclear, but it was bad. She was also bruised, apparently beaten by Do-ong's assistant. 2 days later, Do-ong was arrested in Ton Hoa on charges of kidnapping and torturing his own wife. During the trial, Do-ong didn't deny locking his wife in the cage. He admitted he was just fed up with all the drama from Kamla and her family. He had married her thinking it would be simple. He was a well-respected official and politician, and everyone always asked, "Where's your wife? Where's the mother of the official?" When he saw Kamla, he fell for her. But things quickly soured when her parents kept asking for more and more. He thought that buying 2 houses and giving them land would be enough, but the demands didn't stop. They wanted money, luxury items, things Do-ong himself didn't even have. It wasn't just Kamla's parents, though. Her brother, Baunmi, was a major problem. He was lazy, unemployed, and kept asking for handouts, claiming he needed business capital but never following through. The more Do-ong gave, the more Baunmi asked, draining Do-ong's patience. On top of that, Kamla never showed any interest in being physically close with Do-ong, which only added to his stress. And then, when she ran off with her ex, Vongsa, it was the last straw. It became public knowledge, and it really embarrassed Do-ong, especially at work. By the time Kamla came back, Do-ong had had enough. He didn't care anymore. He was done. Lock her in a cage, he thought. She's got a man already and still ran off with another one. She's got no respect for herself, so why should I care? With that, Do-ong went back to Ton Hoa, leaving everything behind. The police also detained Do-ong's assistant, Thong, who was 45 years old. Thong claimed he was just following orders from his boss and had no idea that the Labrador was in the middle of its mating season. With all the attention focused on Kamla's alleged abuse by the dog, the woman was questioned but just nodded in response. She refused to go into detail about how the animal had hurt her. Meanwhile, the cleaner's aunt, who worked at Do-ong's house, wasn't arrested. She couldn't even get inside the high-walled enclosure. She'd heard Kamla screaming and almost called the police, but she hesitated out of fear. It wasn't until Mr. Foma showed up looking for his daughter that he found out what was really going on. Fast forward to February 17, 2018, when the Haiphong Regional High Court sentenced Do-ong Tipola to 2 years in prison for torturing his wife. Thong got 3 months for his role, though he only served 4 months because he paid bail. He still had to check in with authorities as part of his sentence. After the conviction, Do-ong divorced Kamla but didn't go down quietly. He turned around and sued her and her lover Vongsa for their affair and for running away while she was still legally married to him. In July 2018, Kamla and Vongsa were both sentenced to 14 weeks in prison for their actions. After serving their time, they got married. Meanwhile, Kamla's parents, Mr. Foma and Mrs. Sukanya, somehow came out on top. They got a huge sum of money, and oddly enough, they weren't part of any legal repercussions. Do-ong never asked for the money he had given them back, so they ended up with a nice payout, free and clear of any consequences. What lessons can we learn from this story?